Hey everybody, welcome
Hello.
to Synctank. This is Jim Bob, with
Hello.
music made by Jim Bob. Jim Bob's Instagram, you can find here, has all kinds of cool comics. Some of these comics are quite thought-provoking. Others are entirely hysterical. Most of them are completely poignant. Download the whole set. Super based. Oh, that was cool. See there, that was organic.
You should force all guests to write their own intro. Just be like, hey, here's the deal. You could be on the show, but you have to actually do the whole intro.
I
Be
feel like
all right,
that's
cool.
that would be a good bar. I feel like, if anybody comes to me with an intro, like, we'll think of it like that. That's a good way to start. But yeah, no, I like that. That feels really real all of a sudden. Guys, this is Jim Bob.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Dude, thank you for being here. It's pretty interesting, the stuff that you put out. I love your art. You did a really funny one recently, which was, bro, have you heard of Tartaria? Which is like really good. Because I used to do it. I've done a lot of we do a lot of Tartaria stuff in general, but we're as much as possible try to stay in the realms of the real and understand what are the unreal and try to figure out, like, because there's a lot of legitimate stuff about history that's been erased and everything else. So it was really funny because I saw some of your videos and it looks like you're doing exactly the same thing. You're like trying to figure out, you're like, okay, well, I'm listening, I'm open-minded, but like, dude, like I can't do a live math formula of like 36 places in my head.
That's right. Yeah. Well, that's kind of like, I mean, we're in the truther sphere, and inside that sphere, there's so many different approaches, so many different sort of metaphysics that's tied in, and all sorts of different things. And so it's interesting being a part of it because there is a baseline of like, stop lying to us. That's like the baseline. Everyone could wave that flag. Don't lie to us. And then it's like, well, how crazy are the lies? That's another level. And then it's like, well, how many of the lies are actually just psyops? So they're like lies about lies. And then I'm at the point where I get like tiresome. I'm already a father of 3, so I'm already like tired. And I've gotten to the point where I'm just now making fun of myself, or a past version of myself that gets so inundated and swamped with the pursuit of like this sort of like narrative truth of like getting, and I call it like the folders. We all collect these folders and we're like, dude, Andreas, is your name Andreas?
It's right.
Yeah. Dude, you got to check out this folder. Just download it. And suddenly I'm expecting you to spend 5 hours sifting through this really like dense material that's going to get to the truth. And I sort of realized that as humans, we actually miss more of like grabbing a beer with someone, right? And hanging out and like plucking the guitar and making stupid jokes. I don't know what generation you are, but I'm in the 80s, born in the 80s, and so a lot of that like male on male, just like picking at each other and making fun of each other, calling each other retards and stuff. I feel like people are like missing that element specifically in this sort of truther sphere that's very varied, by the way, in their worldviews.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, so there's a weird idea of like conservation versus liberalism that people think about, and truther is such a abstract. It's kind of like empirically based, so it's based on what you perceive as what you're perceiving with your sensorial data, and that's something that's easily called into question, luckily, because of psychedelics. So now we're at a point where a lot of kids question their own senses, but before that you had, and you still do around parts of the world, like hyper religious persecution and rigidity of autodidactic philosophies. The idea of taking philosophy and making it into a state governance system that is the mode of empiricism, saying this is the way we see things, you need to see it that way too. If you don't see the sky as blue, you're crazy, you need a lobotomy.
And yeah and there is an interesting like dynamic between that, because if you go to either extreme, you're going to be missing something. So it can't be nothing is true and just make it up, because then you're into like sort of like the modern progressive movement of like a movement toward nowhere, because there's no standard for a foundation for what truth is. So, this is something very specific that I've been kind of looking at. Again, I'm focused in the communities I'm in, and it's too easy to make fun of the blue-haired leftists now, right? It's like Ben Shapiro already did
you ever
that.
have blue hair? Did you ever have blue hair in your life?
No, actually, I just had a terrible skater cut where I shaved like the whole side of my head, and I just looked like a cancer patient. And I couldn't even do a kickflip, so it wasn't even worth it. So I kind of like look back at us now. Like, I don't know if to include you to what extent. It's just that
89. I'm on the edge.
Yeah. And so this whole like pursuit of freedom from the technocrats that they're playing their games, and we all see the games going on, but all these different varieties of how we are supposed to pursue these truths, or let's say lies. And I find that if you spend too much time actually pursuing lies, you don't get to fully live your life, even if you think it's valuable. And so that's something I've caught in a trap. I fell into my own trap that way. It's still valuable. It's still valuable to look at lies and these games that are being played through the mainstream media. And I think there are a bunch of psychopaths playing games. It could go up to the level of like, the people who play with numbers and code reality through numbers, or it could be like some weird cabal or Freemasons, whatever you want to say, the Jesuits, whatever it is. I'm almost like at the tail end of like naming them. It's like, it's the Jews, it's the them, it's the this. And I'm just like, what am I doing? What am I doing?
Yeah, isn't that exactly? Don't you feel? Because then you're like, I'm Kanyeing if I do that.
Right.
And there is some legitimacy to saying like, no, it's like individual, like specific people, it's persons, not peoples.
Right. And some people that you would point a group to, some people that you would think are in that group would actually separate themselves from that group. They'd be like, no, I don't see.
That's
I'm not that.
A huge number of people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I do still generalize. I
check out like the anti-5G Israeli Facebook group or something like that.
That's hilarious.
There's a ton of like anti-militants. Eddie made it. What's up? Eddie is with us. Jim Bob.
Hello, Eddie.
Hi, Jim. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I was good. I was trapped in a maze. I was doing the AI test because I could not prove that I'm the owner of the Twitter account. So I was trapped. Man. There's find the mouse, click on the mouse that cannot get the cheese. So I made a stupid mistake.
I hate those.
You think that if you get 1 out of 5, you will get past, right? But no.
So you know what? You need to get the authorization thing. So like the 2-step authorization. So you use your phone to
I'm
check
not
it
gonna
out.
pay like you, man. I'm not gonna
No.
to Elon Musk.
Don't even. That's the second time today because I like tweeted to Linus Tech Tips to like stop talking about Elon Musk all the time because I was just not like stay away from my man. Just like, dude, I'm so tired. I watch like I don't have a lot of time in my day to watch things. Don't make it like about like Elon anymore. Talk about computers again. And he was just, whatever. Everyone's like, you pay $8. It's like, yeah, but like my Twitter's grown like 600 people in the last how many days since this happened. I mean, obviously he's made it open again, which is so, I mean, and yeah, it upsets people that I want to upset. Everything about it seems like a good deal to me. I don't know.
Well, no, Elon Musk has got your credit card number. He's got your address and everything. He know how to get you.
Okay, yeah, so did everybody. Facebook owns companies that buy old Blockbusters so they can get your dad's video cassette rental records. Do you have any idea how much the spying goes? I don't know.
Oh my god! I mean, I think Blockbuster probably can, get me executed at this point.
This is again a wonderful meme here made by Jim Bob. Made by Jim Bob is so meta. Imagine thinking they haven't gone back because they lost the technology. I mean, there's a lot to say about this whole idea. I mean, it almost Rosicrucian, really.
It's almost Bill and Ted. I don't know.
Right. This has come up as a concept. So what do you think though about this idea? I mean, let's just talk about the idea in a really broad sense, this idea of a reset, for instance. Like you're like, bro, let's talk, you know what, you said it, bro, let's talk about Tartaria. Bro, let's talk about Tartaria for a second. What do you think are the odds of, I mean, so first off, Morals and Dogma does mention Tartaria 12 times. So the Freemasons talk about it. Yeah, it's in Morals and Dogma.
I need to read that book again.
so there's, at least we're past that. But what do you think about, is it anything? What is it?
I'm not sure. I haven't looked into it enough. My broad sense is that if there's any sort of technologically advanced peoples, which we know exist, the way we see other things, not just hidden things, but things in the past using tuning forks to cut stone. Like we're not doing that yet. We could, but we just don't. So there's this like archaic form that's a part of some previous civilizations. And I think the best explanation, if that were the case, wouldn't be some sort of deliberate constructed narrative to destroy and then hide. I think it would be the more realistic position I would take, aside from a miracle. It would be like that there's some sort of event, a natural
disaster, volcanoes.
Yeah, that's a little more. Now I don't go far as like melting. Like I make fun of this one dude who's
melting,
like everything's melting. It's like
you
ever watch the guy with the feather? Who's the dude with Mud Fossil?
Right. Mud Fossil.
Okay, so I'll sneak up on his channel sometimes, and he's just like, "This is a giant vagina, and I know this." And he's like, he's just pointing.
Can you imagine if Graham Hancock did that? He's like, "I just want them to know it's a giant's vagina."
And he's like,
"It's a pink taco."
He's like,
"Since I live in Mexico."
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, and I sent the test, and I know this for a fact, and people will say, it's not true. And
tendon balls.
That world is, I think, the extreme takes, and I don't know if this is where I'm at with like psyops, is like, I don't think it requires a bunch of conspirators to have psyops, because with the internet, all you have to do is kind of be this character with a feather and just do that thing, and that'll be enough to be like, oh, this is the representation of like revisionist history. Like this is the ultimate let's say poisoned well version, right? So you guys could get into something reasonable, but what people end up seeing is the guy with the feather, and then it's like, oh no, not that. Similar like with Zach Hubbard, like other gematria chasing number people come on my channel and they're like, dude, he's a shill and he's purposely making it look ridiculous. And I'm like, okay, so but I thought I was the shill. So so why do I have it? Like, how does this all work? And
okay, so wait, what's the difference between a shill and a grifter again?
I think a shill
grifter is more intentional, right?
Yeah, I think a grifter is more someone who can like hop like Frogger onto different logs toward a
so the grifter. A grifter's like the music man who comes to town and tries to sell the instruments, and then a shill is the kid is like in the Clerks.
I think a shill, like trying to sell a grifter is like a shapeshifter. And then a shill is someone who's more like a gatekeeper or protector, like someone who's representing someone else's.
So one who acts as a decoy for a gambler or an auctioneer. Okay,
decoy for a gambler. Oh,
so he's a face. He's a fence or face. Okay, and then what was the other one we were saying? Grifter.
A grifter.
Let's go to here.
Well, I saw the movie Grifter. It's all about scams and.
Just like confidence trickster. So the kind of person that like tricks you with the cups and gambles. In the street,
I didn't even know that was the definition. I think I feel like the modern sense is just like, oh, now he's gonna go be a libertarian, more like a LARPer. But I guess there is a distinction then,
right? And a grift comes from graft. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. So it doesn't seem that bad, but yeah. So to be a shill versus to be a grifter, your whole job is to ask these questions because you're trying to have them answer them. And that's the other problem, because they don't want to be confrontational. You don't want to be confrontational either, but it's not the straw man. It's the steel man. You're trying to get.
Yes, exactly. I'm trying to steel man. That's a perfect way of how I see this stuff is people will be like, dude, you're protecting the truth about this stuff. And I jump on the stream, and then they go, I would never jump on the stream with a shill. And I'm like, I'm literally asking you to jump on the stream and explain all of this. And I'm going to use my reason, and I'm going to counter where I find it necessary. I'm not going to just yes you to death. You know, this isn't like Joe Rogan. I'm going to go, that's crazy, man. I'm going to be like, nah, this doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to say that if it doesn't make sense to me. So.
Right. Yeah. But at the same time, point out like there's always like a logical explanation that also is interesting. So let's say it isn't necessarily that Nostradamus just full on, knew what the heck, but like somebody today who's super rich, who's super into Nostradamus because they're so rich, they have nothing better to do with their time than read Nostradamus, and they're about to have their birthday party or whatever. They say to themselves, you know what I'd love to do for my birthday? I'd love to be at the center of a ceremonial like prophecy. Like let me
right.
Instead of a highway, I want to invest in a prophecy. I want to sponsor a prophecy, and I'll just make it come true, And I feel like that's a thing that a lot of celebrities, it's Burning Man, right? That's a very Californian thing to do.
I think that is actually a very reasonable approach, at least in inquiry of like, when you really, none of us, because we're peasants, can imagine where money, constraints, time is not an object, where you're just, if some dude is like single and rich, it's not even on their mind to sleep with 10 Russian models, because that's already been done like 10 years ago for them. It's more like, well, how do I do The Sims, but with people? Like, that's what they're thinking. Like, how do I play a game that gives me the same level of cortisol and endorphins that we would get from just maybe like almost getting hit by a bike, right? Like, like on the sidewalk, we're like, holy shit. They need more because they're not living a normal peasant life like you and I. I think that exists. I think those people want to, and I think they get nudged at like parties, and they're like, "Oh, you're bored, right? I could tell. Go to the Getty.
Race humans.
Yeah, exactly. Like, have you ever been to the 20th floor under the Getty? And then this is the other part. This is how they get like honeypot.
I just learned about that.
Yeah, that they don't know what they're getting into until they see it, and so it's this weird thing, like the whole thing with like. Stephen Hawking, he's like, I'd like to go to Epstein Island, and then he shows up, and it's not because he was already into like whatever we could imagine, like eating like Haitian arms as chicken wings with dipping sauce. It's that they just invite wealthy people to these places, and then they see if they can leverage some sort of blackmail on these people.
Oh, yeah.
I think a lot of it works that way.
Where Lady Gaga.
What a new idea.
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
Those are not human cakes. Those are not human cakes.
Just really quickly, because I never really delved too deep into the Lady Gaga one, but do you know what I'm talking about? So who's the girl
I still talk about
who's the girl Lady Gaga? What's her name? Meg? What?
Oh, Megan Fox or something?
I was talking about the event that they go to. Wait.
Where it's like impersonate. It's like acting out cannibalism and stuff.
Conspiracy. What's the conspiracy?
That's the
Lena Morgana. You know what I'm talking about? Lena Morgana?
Oh, right.
Yeah, so there's this whole conspiracy, and she makes all these videos of herself. Where's the bizarre conspiracy? That she, because the lady made pop music similar to her. Then she fell out of a window or something, like off a bridge, like out of a building, something like that.
Well, this stuff in music, I just did a stream, not totally dedicated to it, but
music or human sacrifice? Music?
Both. The tie between music and sacrifice is not just like a satanic level, which I do believe exists. But there is something called the death clause in the music industry that's very explicit and very well known and not talked about, which is you incentivize the early death of stars. And if you could make it happen somehow, now some people could say, well, they get murdered, or someone could say, well, we just encourage a lot of drugs and debauchery such that they just don't take care of themselves, and something eventually happens, because that's the likelihood of that lifestyle. And this is why and the death clause actually pays up to 100 times more than if that person lives on and becomes just, Bob Dylan, just, I can't believe I didn't die. I should have died earlier. Yeah, and somehow they escape it sometimes, and it's not in favor of the industry or the record label, whereas sometimes it is, and they shovel in the drugs, they shovel in all of the stuff. They surround them with death, basically, like what would likely cause death. And that's fascinating because it's incentivized. So it's not like this conspiracy theory where it's like they're out to get me. these people admit that the producers act like these guardians of their life, and they want to manage when they die, which is really crazy. It would make for a really great movie. Like someone, yeah.
Hey Jim, I'm sorry because I came in late. So Jim, what is your background? I mean, I'm in the entertainment industry myself, but I mean, I do illustration and post-production stuff. Like that,
my background is I lived in Los Angeles for 15 years, so I was in entertainment and reality television and all sorts of stuff there. And then when I left, and now I have 3 kids, I'm in Colorado. And so my background has always been some form of entertainment. I think I started cartooning about six years ago, maybe. And so
you've freaking seen his memes, man. I post them in your groups.
Yeah, so that's my background is basically just like cultural analysis, worldview analysis, logic and philosophy here and there, and just trying to make a humorous attempt at tackling a lot of this stuff.
Sure. No, I'm asking just because we're going through some dark areas where I don't assume to know anything. But I've been hearing about it. I work with some people who are in high places that are a little scary and very intimidating people that are unsavory to a lot of movie stars.
Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah.
And so
and they make weird, quippy math jokes, right? That's the thing. There's these, and it's like, so that's the thing. It's very Lex Luthor-y, and we're all like on one side going, come on, man. Like, we're not over here. Like, who's got time to be doing like 50-digit things in their head? And then there's this like dude cutting off his ear like at a Van Gogh painting to like the way a highway is built. And he's like, oh, I can't believe and that's Kubrick, right? And that's just, everything. How dare they? Mm-hmm. The audacity. So I don't know. I was gonna pull up some things from the Synchronous group because it's kind of interesting enough. I mean, it's on the level of that.
I didn't post. And are you back in the Facebook?
This is a Facebook group, yeah. But Eric posted this. I thought this would be really interesting. Is like, for instance, right? Like Balenciaga means do what you want or do what thou will.
I was actually debating. I was debating with Eric. Eric's the one who posted. He posted. He's a very knowledgeable guy too. But he figured that he tried to look up Balenciaga in Latin. But then look it up. Go back to that screen again. It's not Latin. He looked up Latin, but it says it's Hausa. Hausa is Africa. And actually, I did learn that language in Cal Arts. Just so I failed it.
Are you kidding me? It's from Chad.
Wait, you learned Hausa?
Guy. He's an African musician teacher, in the music school in my school, and he taught me this language. But I completely forgot everything.
There aren't any clicks.
No.
Made by Jim Bob. Do me a favor, please.
There's no like an empty Coca-Cola.
Please make Please make a decent Chad meme because it's been a while since I've seen a decent one, and in the shape of Chad, the country,
that's funny, yeah. Look at
it's
that,
exact, like it's precise.
Yep.
I mean, but the linguistic groups of the Kadic, Kadic, it almost sounds Semitic even.
Probably some roots to it, But if you look back to what he posted, he basically said that translates to "do what thy will," right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about the Telema.
So, there was another one.
It would have been amazing, though.
I always double check those things too. It's very excitable when you see that and you're like, oh, I got to do this. I've eaten my words a couple times by just impulse reposting something, and then I just look it up and I'm like, oh, it was a cheat. They cheated on this.
Right. I do I don't like to do all the math myself. I go to gematrix.org.
The Gematrinator.
Yeah, super easy. You type in a number, and so what we found,
like 10 different ciphers. Yeah,
Balenciaga is 15, Satan's 50 or 55. I'm sorry, Satan's 55. Do what you want is 55, and there's a bunch of other ones that they found along the way as well, including Diana and
55
Chime.
Is also a number I came. Yeah, 55 is also a number I came up with for a long time because of Back to the Future. The 55 I associated with Saturn because there are a lot of time codes. That 11:55, like the November 5th.
See, isn't this fun though? Oh, it's 53. Doesn't that make you feel like you're on acid though? Just people jumping from number to number. It's like I love it. It's like
number association, just endless.
Yeah, but you think how much do you think that some of these, like for instance, this one's kind of interesting. What cachet would you put into the name actually supposedly? Is it just how much of a coincidence?
Well, I would.
How meta is it?
I would first go to what it means in its own language, and then I would ask my etymologist linguist friend to trace it back properly from his study. and I wouldn't go with memes exactly because you want to be impartial. Because you can do a lot of confirmation bias with this stuff with sounds, and there is a lot of word concept fallacies and sound. Someone was on my stream the other day, and they were like, trying to convince us to that the thing to do to connect with God was to lick your the roof of your mouth, and eventually you can tingle your pineal gland. And then he went on, yeah. And then he went on to say, the reason it makes you salivate, and there's a reason why salivate sounds like salivation. But unfortunately for that guy, my buddy who does a stream with me most of the time, he'll jump on the latter end. He was a linguist, and he was just like, dude, this is not. I'm gonna destroy this really quick, even though it sounds really good. I gotta destroy it, and so I'm very much someone who's doesn't get caught up in the emotional drive to make connections like this. I take it very slow, like an old man now, where I'm just like, well, what does that word mean? And I'll take the word first and see where it draws to as far as its history, and then go from there.
Etymology is very important.
Yeah, etymology is sometimes lost. Sometimes it does actually make this really interesting connection, but most of the time people are cheating with sounds, right? They're cheating with, I did this one thing where a guy called in. I sometimes watch like a channel, and people call in with all their like wacky ideas, and he was like, the one dude was like, dude, think about it. Like, you just breathing, you're saying Yahweh. And I'm like, if you're hyperventilating, like these
that's
jumps.
Your dog is God backwards.
Yeah, all this stuff. And I've just like, I think I've just graduated from that impulse where I'm just like, I'm almost like the grumpy curmudgeon dude who has to smash all of the romanticism out of some of these things. But that doesn't mean there aren't some that are like very interesting. And I do believe there are satanic elite people who do practice this Kabbalistic form of numerology, and I think they do embed certain instances. But I think my hunch is that getting people to chase it all day and not, have a family or not pursue their own fulfillment in their own lives, I think that might be a part of the tradition itself is like sucking people into the chasing world as opposed to the living your life world.
Well, I mean, it's all psyop anyway. How about this? Maybe I ask this question: how much do you think those Satan worshippers, or who conduct a child sacrifice deep in the tunnel or in the cavern somewhere, how much do you think they believe in the existence of a deity named Satan? Or Moloch, Baal, or whatever.
I think that the modern Satanists are more cultural Satanists, and they don't actually really believe. But I think some of the deeper, like, some of the people who like maybe are remnants of the cult of the Black Cube, the Saturnalian cults, and I think there are some people who really live that life. And I do believe, I don't know if it's as prevalent as we'd like to think, from the sort of Q-tard movement, where it's like it's all happening in the sewers. I do think that there is perpetual child sacrifice, and I do think that there are people who are in high places who, like you said, Andreas, aren't just organizing some mock version of Eyes Wide Shut, but actually doing it with children from broken countries like Haiti. And I think there's a market for it because of, I think it's a result of obviously, from my view, it's completely demonic, but it's luxury. Like, luxury is not only gives way to that kind of stuff at the highest scale, but gives way to like the pronoun stuff. I call it in my live stream, I call it concerns that disappear with food shortages. Like, all of these things, if you don't know where you're getting your bread or your chicken from that day, you're not worried about your pronouns. You're not worried about, genders. All of these things seem to disappear. So I think modernity plays a lot into a lot of the stuff we're all looking at whatever level you're looking at, especially the highest level, where they're in a luxury state, and the normal things that get us by, like a burger and a beer, right, is not going to do it for them. They need more. They need to satiate something that's way deeper in need. Right?
I think we, us non-vegetarians are just equally guilty in many ways. You take the calf away from the mom, and you you chop it up and turn it into veal. It's
so
like
good.
Vegetarians are pretty
more or
bad
less.
too. Vegetarians are killing billions upon billions of microorganisms, entire colonies. It's actually genocide if you think about it.
The plants are actually wisdom. They kill a lot of wisdom.
Yeah.
Well, I do think there's something missing there with this sort of mass production. I obviously I have no sympathy for the vegan view, its philosophy, but I think something's removed from men, and I'm included in this, is being able to outsource all of this stuff, right? To not have to kill your own deer, or because you'd have to face what was required, and to face that. Yeah, exactly. And then exactly. And then you actually reason and understand the respect for the animal, even though you still took its life and you're going to eat it. It's that link is missing, and you just go to the store and you just get the block of thing, and you don't understand the process, and you wouldn't be able to cut the cuts yourself if you had to. So I think that survival aspect, again, of a luxury. We're talking about symptoms of luxury. And we're all guilty of it. We're all guilty of symptoms.
It's like Dahmer and his refrigerator. He makes sure it lasts like at least 3 months.
Yeah, he's pragmatic, super pragmatic.
Okay, Jim Bob, you damn communist. Let me prove your point really quickly. I think you're actually right.
Custard.
Everything you said might actually be right. So I started this group a long time ago because of the Illuminati card game. The Robert Anton Wilson card game.
Yep.
We need to interview that guy, Steve Jackson. How come nobody ever interviewed him?
Here's all the cards. We got to get into.
So it really is a real game. I could never tell if it was. I could.
Yeah. I've got a bunch of. Actually, I have a bunch of expansion decks, like the Subgenius expansion deck and everything like that. Let me pull out a card here. Hold on. This one is, ironically, this is hilarious. Exposed recording. Nice. I mean, it's almost as if,
hey, Mr. President, look, your pants are down with a bunch of
the bottom line is that this card deck is magical, and now he works for Disney, making like kids board game stuff, right?
Or is that?
Yeah,
that's actually magic with a K. Then, if he's working for Disney.
Yeah, right. That's what it seems like. So I started this because I wanted to digitize it. I was like, look, not everyone has a copy of the game. We get a digital copy, and then a bunch of people could play it, and then we'll play it online. Mm-hmm. But it's Facebook, and it was public. So all of a sudden, all these people started joining the group, and they're all like, hey, I'm in the Illuminati. If you join the Illuminati, you can get money.
I have so many. In the last week, I've had 3 different direct messages saying, do you want to be a part of the Illuminati and blah blah blah?
That's why you're here, actually.
And I'm just like
that Santa Claus movie.
I was like, fuck off. Like, I'm like, I wouldn't trust if it was so important.
That's it's 3 knocks. It's 3 knocks. Is the rule.
If it was this easy to get into from a Instagram direct message, I'm not in. I'm not even close.
Yeah, Groucho Marx said he would never join an Illuminati that would accept someone like him as a Freemason. Something to that. I think I'm paraphrasing. But yeah, these guys are all like, dude, call this number. And I'm not recommending this, by the way, but like I get the feeling, and like there's upset people in Africa that are like, I gave money to this person, and they, they said they were going to put me into the Illuminati. I don't know. It's pretty weird. I mean, so I don't know. On one level, yes, it's a wealth problem in the sense that but on the other hand, I mean, here are poor people that wealth is the allure. They're like, I want this thing I can't have. So it's still poor people. So what's going on with that? Where there's all this internal suffering and people that want to be in the Illuminati all over Africa or the world.
Well, I would go to a spiritual level on that. I would say it's not that they want money necessarily. Is that they think money is going to make them fulfilled or whatever it is. Yeah. So it could be Illuminati tribe. In Hollywood, it might not be money. It's like access to really debaucherous scenarios where nobody talks about it, and it's like a secret club or whatever. And so people are actually on a broad level. I think what's happening is that we're in a position now, wherever you are, where you're vulnerable to your vices, and that's why I always, as a man, I always warn other men and speak to men who, your liberation from the external world is not like this freedom fighter aspect necessarily. It's that you have discipline over your desires that overcome you. And so that's a part of masculinity that I think the Western world has lost maybe since the Enlightenment, where everything was like, just pursue your rational position, homo economicus, be a cog basically. And I think, again, with the luxury that all of our appetites are actually in very close proximity to us. For whatever our vices are, whatever our proclivities are, all men have something. It's that there's so much access to it, and that could be gambling, it could be pornography, prostitution, whatever. And at the higher levels, it gets darker than that. Obviously, it's like, hey, you want to torture a kid? And then they're like, yeah, but I mean, it's wrong, right? And they're like, yeah, but you can get, you're never gonna feel the rush again. That the same. It's like the squirrel suit jump.
You can give education to 1,000 kids in an orphanage. Or
exactly. Some weird moral trade off or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think people are vulnerable right now with luxury. That's why modernity is such a danger. It's not just because it ends long-standing traditions. Binding men and honor together in whatever culture you're talking about. But it's just like, it's putting us all on a conveyor belt, and we're just like stuffing our mouths like that Wall-E movie, right? Where you just become, and then you're paying a membership to your own life, which is basically where the corporate version of
CIA AIDS, right? We're gonna eventually just a monthly plan to stay alive.
Exactly, yeah, membership to your own life. You get your coin to operate in the city. This is actually, I'd like your guys' thought on this, is that I cover like technocrats a lot and where they try to go with the sentient city kind of concept.
I just interviewed Ben Gertzel, actually, yeah.
Oh, really?
That's exactly what the Great Reset is going to be. I mean, it's all going to be like England's about to roll out the CBDC and all these, everything's going to have to be credit based. Look at all the cryptos like collapsing one by one, and they're trying to bankrupt the system. It's all working to their favor. We know that.
Yeah. Especially in the major cities where people are less dependent on a one-to-one barter system. Like in the woods, you could still kind of do that. It's a harder life to live, but you can still, Carl and his family or whatever. And you're like, oh, Carl, I need milk. Oh, great. Can you make me a belt or something? Now this is like way out there, but I think that this movement forward, the Great Reset, obviously is about changing. How we look at our phones, and we're on like an app, or we call it a platform, right? I think the goal, and it's pretty clear, is that the companies in conjunction with the government want to turn cities, like actual locations, into platforms. Imagine what you then do. You swap out civil liberties and constitutional rights and such with TOS, with agreements to participate on the platform.
Social contracts.
Yeah, and then in this case, a corporation could actually take over Seattle, and when you enter this region via tracking device, now you agree to the terms, right, and conditions. And here's by the way, by agreeing, you get 50 UBI or whatever the hell they would.
Oh my God, labor vouchers.
Yeah,
this is good. Do you know about Josiah? Do you know about Josiah Warren and Robert Owen?
No.
Okay, so in the before times, they created before Marxism, and it's this managerial theory where you feed everyone out of the same trough, like horses, and that way everyone is. But you make sure they go to bed at the same time. You make sure they're healthy. There's no flies and fleas and everything like that. So then the other thing is you stop having gold-backed money and you start having labor vouchers, right? Which is money backed by, get this, hours of labor. Or fractions of hours of labor, right? Yeah. So maybe it's worth 8 hours of an African man's life, but an hour of your life, or an eighth of an hour of a Japanese person's life, or something like that. Oh, yeah. And it's all about refining the resources of the state, right? You refine, or of the corporation, which is on behalf of the state, refining the resources for them, the means of capital. And I'm talking about the person, because the person is the unrefined resource. You educate them, you keep them healthy, and all of a sudden you have labor vouchers, which are, California coin or New York coin. And this was done by a polymath and an anarchist. But when we talk about anarchy, we got to remember people like Jeff Bezos, people that don't want to have people underneath or above them telling them how to live their lives, right? ANCAP. There's a kind of anarchy, which is like, this world we live in is technically in international political science considered an anarchy. If you don't count the United Nations as an overarching government, then each government is technically its own thing that's pushing as far, and no one can tell them what to do, right? So
I think Elon Musk is getting there. He since since Warner Ron already said that he's got a title waiting for him on Mars, right? He's gonna be the Lord of Mars. So he's like, I'm the richest man already. I'm like, what else do I have to listen to?
What's really interesting about that previous model you just stated is that with technology and genomics, the ultimate labor voucher is access to your bio. And so I call it inner space. And so if because in crypto, you need a mining rig that's in someone's closet with a fan on it and it's based on electricity. Well, we're electric too. And guess what? Inside our bodies, we solve problems. And so that's already patented, by the way, Bill Gates, of course, turning the body into the mining rig. Now, if you're signed, to sign into the use of a currency in, let's say, a special city, is to give access to your biometrics, and in exchange, your body becomes a mining rig that keeps the currency ledger alive. This is an obvious next step that's actually consistent with what you just said.
2200 60606, the 60606.
Hey, Jim Bob, how you probably heard of this? Mostly it's spoken from Jordan Maxwell. If you know that guy, he just passed away. He was kind of breaking it down to what the birth certificate means. The whole etymology of birth. The shipment coming to the birth, right? Unloading the baby, the dock, will pick up the baby and all that stuff. So every asset that comes into the harbor, the baby, unloading the baby is a human resource, right? So he breaks it down pretty clearly, and it makes sense. It does make sense, but all the Admiralty, maritime Admiralty laws and the UCC commercial code, it's all. So what you are just explaining right now is pretty much the same, but it's digitized, modified. I pretty much believe at this point. I haven't thoroughly checked, but saying that our birth certificate all have that number that's listed in the New York Stock Exchange. We are the goods.
The social security, I think, as well. That you can exchange. It's basically that's true. That there's an actual stock. You could look your number up too, and this freaks people out. I think that's like you get freaked out because the lack of knowledge of how that all developed and why why men would want to do that. But then once you're not surprised by man's intention, some of his darker intentions, you're not surprised by some of the things that you start to find out. You're just like, oh, okay, that just like the meeting on Jekyll Island. Like you go, oh, those bastards, they all met up and made the Fed, and they knew what they were doing. They knew it was gonna mess stuff up, and they did it anyway. Those little conniving bastards. But
it was a nice island. Have you been to Jekyll Island? It's beautiful off the coast of Carolina. It's nice.
Oh, is that where it is? I gotta visit.
Like Peru or something.
Yeah, and this stuff never ends, by the way. It's like, you catch one of their tricks and you expose it. They're already on to the next one, and it's a new generation of they. It's not like some collective, like, family. It's like, it's people often born into positions of power or some sort of bloodline, and then they go, well, how do I position myself to maintain this system and influence it, like the Klaus Schwabs and all those guys. They're actually not good at what they do, by the way, which should be really relieving to the sort of truther sphere who often maybe spiral about this stuff. These people are not good. Keep in mind the the UN agenda. Keep in mind they've been at the same broken ass goal with the same list of tired positions of what they believe the world should be since 1992. They launched this.
Look, have you seen their new logo? Let's go back to the 30s with that. They really have Klaus Schwab unveils new logo at the APEC.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I don't think it's the 90s. I think it's maybe the 1890s. Yeah, Coca-Cola did this, but it's the 30s.
Yeah. They had their first, the UN agenda in Rio de Janeiro. They released their,
Oh, that's a crazy one.
Our common future, and you read their lists, and you go, oh my God, these people they're so off on what it is to be a human being, which actually.
Oh, right. The Agenda 21 Rio Summit. So where did you grow up, Jim Bob?
Catskill Mountains in New York.
Oh, okay. So you're Joey. You know Joey pretty well, right? You did an interview with Joey B. Tunes.
Oh, Joey B. Tunes. Yeah, I've been on his channel.
Yeah, he's from around there.
Yeah. We chat. Yeah.
Okay. This Rio Summit. The first time I heard about it was this guy George Hunt. You heard of him? He basically he kind of became a reborn Christian because he was hosting the event, and he was talking to Rothschild, Edmund, not Edward, one of the Rothschilds,
Mm-hmm.
but he was there. You can still find it on YouTube or Rumble, but the whole video is talking about the 1992.
Uh-huh.
Basically he said the whole thing is basically trying to monetize the whole globe, basically.
Yeah.
Like,
It's a modern monetary theory or resource-based economy where you sort of sign up and be on a waiting list to use gas to cook some chicken or something like that.
Yeah, you
you
have to
know,
use solar cookers. That's what they,
you
the
know,
solar. You can cook as long as they have the sun on
this
for
is
you.
why they need. This is why they need culture, and that's why they need to co-opt the companies to push
Right.
culture that doesn't actually align with a free market system, which obviously is an illusion at this point. It's just that you realize they can't really use authority because it's such a silly position that they have. They need to actually lie and represent that there's a trend going in this direction. It's just like veganism, and you're like, oh, really? So it's still less than 1% of the entire world who has a vegan lifestyle. And you're going to tell us that we're going to make the world vegan by what, 2030? I mean, as much as this stuff sends you into spirals, and it's good to keep an eye on these people, it's a good reminder that they're mostly full of shit. That their pipe dreams are maybe their real pipe dreams, but they're so disconnected from how reality works in practicality. They're lost. They're lost.
you look at Bill Gates. He built that Doomsday Sea Vault right in the Svalbard, right? That whole place is melting right now. The
Right,
ice is like,
right.
I'm like, what? You spend how many billions to build that sea vault? Now all the seeds are sprouting.
Right.
I don't know. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Trying to get the
It's just
picture
not
right so
working.
you can see it. Hold on.
Oh yeah.
It-
I'm a farmer now.
There you
I,
go.
I, I
Oh,
made I made a post about him because his daughter got married to an Egyptian, right? And they're expecting a baby. So I don't know. I'm still doing some background check on her husband.
So,
Whether
fun
he's
fact
a
about
pharaoh.
Agenda 21, before the Rio Summit, they decided, certain cities were going to be associated together.
Mhm.
And the cities that joined together for Agenda 21 were called the Agenda 21 pilot cities. And so the goal was that by the end of the Agenda 21, which was 2001,
21, right? Yeah.
and then, well, actually 2001, and there's 21 because there's
Okay.
actually,
They keep pushing it, right?
yeah, there was two groups. Like there was the 92 or 94 summit. Was
Mhm.
it led to the 92 summit led to the Agenda 21. Because they're like, we'll get to 2001, and then they got to 21. So basically, I grew up in Santa Cruz, California, which is one of the Agenda 21 pilot cities. And I would go and visit other places, and it took me a long time to understand why. But everyone was like, oh, Santa Cruz is weird. Santa Cruz is different. Santa Cruz is strange. Now I kind of see why. And the rest of the world has assimilated into the world that was that we were already thrust into, the way that we were taught in school. And so we, for instance, all these kinds of things you're talking about in terms of masculinity, these were basically banned
Mhm.
entirely by the time, as soon as I got to school. Kids were taking action figures and bending them over into guns to like play with each other, right?
Right.
So they were trying their best to continue to exist. But the thing is, there's a lot of these other places, not just Santa Cruz. There's places in Spain, Ireland, Ecuador,
Mhm.
Argentina,
Oh, it's
Mexico.
massive. Yeah.
Yeah, all over the world that were set up kind of the way 5G was like rolled out early in certain
Yeah.
cities.
Yeah. They need the Internet of Things and bodies for this, and they need the willingness of people to live that kind of lifestyle. And I don't know if you guys researched the John Calhoun mouse utopian experiment, but it's a really good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. In no
The
way.
thousands of mice together, right?
Yeah. Utopian, you give them everything they need, and this is the view of these people. And not to say that we're mice or anything, but if we're to derive anything from this experiment, is that it's not enough to give people what you think they just need, right? Or even desire, right? That's not enough, right? Human beings are not just these things that are parasitic and just consume stuff. There's more to us. There's more to us in our being. And so to look at us like animals, that's how these people see humans, like just animals, like only animals, and they are to be guided into the system that we deem that works best for us. And this goes back to I think it was Plato who sort of had this notion of like the
Pathos.
the technologically sound scientific establishment would then run the city. And so it's been in effect for a while, this pursuit, and it's always failed because it's I think its metaphysics are off or absent. And even in this sense, you give everyone what they want, that's not fulfillment. If you and I get everything we want, it's
Sticky marks, Agenda 21. Agenda 21. I protested the Rio Earth Summit 92. I threw water in the face of Maurice Strong. Yay!
See, I totally forgot
Much respect, Sticky Marks. I mean, we already liked you, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, Maurice Strong is basically Rothschild's right hand man. That guy escaped to China. He's trying to pull the strings in China, and then people in China figured it out.
Not that I'm just like, I don't want to Kanye out here or anything. But have you heard the record, The Rothschilds, or did you see the musical?
No, is that who did that?
Fiddler on the Roof. You know about the Fiddler on the Roof?
Yeah.
Okay, so the people who made the Fiddler on the Roof, Jerry Bach and Sheldon Harnick, they made another musical that was a Broadway musical, right? And if I could just type here, there you go, Rothschilds 1970 with Bach. They did this one here, and it is flawless. It is an amazing musical. It's one of my favorite musicals ever made. And in it, they tell the story of the family of the Rothschilds, who are like a young and up and coming. I don't know if you guys have heard of them, but they did well for themselves, and they have 5 kids in this musical that go to 5 different lands, like 5 princes. And then, the father, he tossed a coin, he told them what to do. And then, the sons who become Copenhagen's favorite banking firm see the Napoleonic War. And they know Napoleon has lost the war. And this is like track 12. Then they go and was it shill or grift? I forget now. But they go and
on both sides.
They go to the British and start selling short. They have all these war bonds and they start lowering the prices, and then everyone freaks out. They're like, "Oh man, the economy must be collapsing. They know something we don't know. Let's sell ours shorter." And then they were secretly grifting. They were also buying shills and grifts.
Yeah, you could sell confidence and you can sell the absence of confidence, right? Like confidence in not confidence. A perfect example is even today, someone like Elon Musk could do one tweet and break the confidence of a certain trend. Now it's even more immediate. You can do this stuff, but
Bitcoin, my God, right? Bitcoin's an amazing example. I mean, it's exactly the same step kind of approach. It's like sell short, buy short,
pump up, pump and dump. It's just ongoing.
There's billions of dollars get disappeared, which is great.
You heard about all these? The third crypto guy got killed after the FXT scandal. The Russian billionaire, he just got his helicopter crashed today.
Oh,
and one by one they're disappearing. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's happening. It's happening.
Well, there was.
Who's doing it.
It's just like the best way. I mean, beyond, it's like the extension, a technological extension of how modern art is still used today to launder money, because it's such an easy thing. You just go, a banana on a wall. I'll give you. I need to disappear $30 million. I can't believe someone bought that for $30 million. Yeah, no, you
like
you
NFT,
can't believe.
right?
Yeah, you can't believe someone moved $30 million and has a justification for moving it. Like that's useless. Like a banana or an NFT. Yeah, exactly. NFT. It's such a genius, dark industry that's now even more possible through these systems, except they'll probably crack down on them. I know, they're hard to manage, but they're obviously hard to design not to be centralized, but I think they crack down
that's
on
what I was trying to find, and I can't find, but I'll just try to paraphrase, is somebody had posted, if I was in intelligence, what I would do is I would hire, and I wanted to know what was going on with all this illegal finances or foreign alien finances. I would get a hippie looking guy and put them as the frontman for some sort of a thing, somebody who has long hair, kind of scruffy, and MIT dropout, something.
Wild genius look, right?
Wild genius look.
Yeah.
Then I would start pumping $1 billion into it from black funds, right? Dark funds. And then the normal money would start coming in. You have 2-3 billion from consumers, and this is all creating more media sensation. With that money, quickly put it into other failing projects so that you can control 50% of them And then you have control of the ledger, because you can basically fork the coin if you have 51%. And that's how you get Bitcoin revisions and people on the Ethereum revision chain and everything. And they're like, wait, why can't we mine Ethereum anymore? Well, you can mine Classic, but nobody cares.
Yeah. Look up availability entrepreneurs. That's basically, even in the classical monetary sense, where you're basically you're creating confidence in a certain narrative or trend, and then there's a cascade, availability cascade, and there's a lifeline of the trend moving, and then you capitalize while the wave is hitting. But you could now, with this modern stuff, is you could manufacture availability cascades themselves. You can actually just make them happen, like at will, just whenever you want. And with this technology, they can move exactly how you described. You create a quick trend, you put a face behind it, right? He's a dud. He's probably autistic, by the way. Didn't even know, right? It's like these people who work for NASA now. They're just like, I want to land a jet through the computer. They're just like fall men, right? You just oh, you work for NASA. Oh yeah, you work for NASA.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, tell me about that.
That was exactly that hit very close to home.
Oh man, listen, my view on NASA, I don't know if you heard, but they are deliberately doing outreach to neurodiverse and autistic. Now, I don't know how autistic you are, Andreas. There might be a percent. Just you're very friendly.
I feel like Bostonian autistic. Yeah, I'm an artist. I'm an artist.
We get it. And so, but now they really do outreach, because you can basically plant someone who's technically. I have a whole other conspiracy theory about autism. Is that I think it was in 2016 they effectively created monkeys with autism. So that means it's executable. That means you can execute what they call on the spectrum of potentially a functional, very high functioning autist who doesn't get caught up in socialization, jokes, let's say. Joking
it's
around.
Like Echo the Dolphin in that movie,
narrow and focused, right? And so if you look at the sort of the utilitarian corporatist psychopath, why build robot? Why pay Boston Robotics, right, to make a robot
that autistic human?
You just turn a human into an autist. Into a robot by removing all of the social lag. I feel like this is a term that might be relevant in the future. Social lag, like it's seen as a broken thing to have social etiquette and humor. That autists are now seen as the prime example of human performance, whereas before it was like, charm for a man, or humor, or, wit. No, get rid of all that, and you weaponize autism by making basically what they'll probably do is soldiers. So now they got NASA covered. Now they need autistic soldiers who just don't have a moral lens, just execute tasks. And here's the thing. Imagine if you can reverse it. So you temporarily give them what they need, and then you reverse it when they're done, and so they don't have any like the lingering problems or something like that.
You remember Project X with the monkeys, the chimpanzees? Mm-hmm. You've seen the studies on this where like they actually have chimps playing video games. Basically, they're way better at it than us.
The memory is much better than humans. Like
even Crossy Road,
the memory games are really amazing.
I wish I could find the picture. Chimp. Hold on. Monkey playing? It's gotta be chimpanzee playing, and chimp.
I actually think that is because they're not overly complex thinkers. They're just responding. Like they're just
right.
So they're focused in, and we are like, we get reminded, a 9 reminds us of something, and even like subconsciously it could make us distracted, and
Yeah. So this monkey can do, like the chimpanzee can do, sorry I keep saying monkey, can do 30 times as many digits or something. Like if you just flash this on the screen, it can remember the place for all these numbers, and it can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and just move around like that.
I want to know the reward for the chimp, because they keep feeding him.
They don't kill him. They don't kill him.
He lives in a pretty cool place in Japan. He lives in Japan. I mean, I would play this game every day.
Probably give him cigarettes, honestly.
Cigarettes, yeah.
There you go. That's another dopamine.
That's what chimps like, man. I don't know, but I mean, so there is this kind of idea of turning us into animals, and like you think of Echo the Dolphin, right? You know about the original project for that, with John C. Lilly. So not the video game, but originally Echo the Dolphin was a mind control program by the government where they were trying to do echolocation and use it for submarines, but also for like they were giving dolphins DMT and PCP because they were trying to
like
echolocate in the dream realm.
Yeah.
The government does weird stuff.
Yeah, they do. They want to get to the core. They know something else might exist on the some other level, and they're the men who stare at goats, something similar, right?
Yeah,
where they're trying to do psychic work and stuff like that.
You've seen Project Stargate and all that.
First, what's it called? First Earth Battalion. Yeah, that thing is really weird. Because if you look at the documentary, the First Earth Battalion was approved by General Stubblebine. Stubblebine. And look at General Stubblebine. So,
General.
He's the one.
Sounds like a fake name.
Stubblebine.
Well, he passed away. Yeah. So this guy, he's the one. He's the one who was pushing the research on how men can walk through wall. So he been trying to walk through wall and keep hitting his head.
And then he died.
But the funny thing is his wife. Look up his wife.
Maybe he used to walk through walls and now he can't anymore. Is this her? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to find his wife.
No, you got it. But look up his wife.
You know,
do you know that name? Do you know her name?
No.
Dr. Labo. She was actually talking about Agenda 21. She was a whistleblower against Agenda 2021. Look up his wife, his spouse.
You know what's funny about that?
Label, yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember.
It's a weird couple, basically.
Oh, she was the one who was like for healthy stuff against Codex Alimentarius. Wow.
Like she called the whistleblower. Oh,
interesting.
Your husband is the mind control master. Your husband is the one who's the man who's staring.
Yeah, the guy pentagram wall walker. What the heck? I don't know. That's kind of weird, right?
Yeah,
you know what's funny? Like
she was all over the place. She was like whistleblowing everywhere, right?
A funny way to look at that guy is like, he thought he was a part of a project to figure out how to walk through walls, but the project was whether they can convince him that if he could believe that he could walk through walls. So that he was probably the subject of the mind control, where he's like, I'm studying something big. I'm going to see if I could walk through walls. And they're like, this is working. We actually got him to believe that it's possible. And now he's trying it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, most of this stuff went that way. Lily put a girl in with a dolphin in the house that Epstein ended up buying, and then gave him handies. That is a true. Thank you for that comment. Every time I try not to bring that part up, everyone has to remind it. But I'm glad.
Dolphin handies.
Yeah. This is Margaret Levat. Margaret Levat was training the dolphin to do the alphabet. The alphabet was very important.
NASA, this is your connection here.
This is the deal. That's why I'm so interested in the dolphin.
Do you get truthers calling you out and being like, he works? He's a subvert. He's going into the movement.
Oh man, there were like 4chan. There were 4chan memes about me with red lines to Alex Jones, and like I had a vice.
Oh man. I got yelled at yesterday. Someone was like, "Oh, you went on and talked to was it what's the lower version of Alex Jones? The American Journal. The American Journal. Like I went on there because they always get my book, and Harrison is like funny.
Yeah.
And I go on there, and then they're like, oh, you also went on Jesse Lee Peterson. I'm like,
They don't like Jesse Lee Peterson? I love Jesse Lee Peterson.
I'm just a dude who draws rudimentary cartoons and does some stuff online, and they're like, no, you know, if you're on there, it means that blah blah blah. And I'm like, dude, this whole like exposure movement thing is all failing now. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
I know exactly what you're talking about. The people are trying to dig into backgrounds, but I tell you something funny about me. You know, my dad, he worked at Letterman Hospital in a Presidio Army base. And he worked in the same hallway, just down the hall from Michael Aquino, the founder of Temple.
Michael Aquino, right? Temple Setter. He's like, so the child molestation thing. You've heard of him? Yeah.
Torture and all the mind experiments. The PSYOP. He was the original PSYOP master in the Vietnam War. I
always like to pull up that picture of him with what's his name, Sammy Davis.
What a creepy looking dude that guy is.
Yeah, so here's him back in the day with Sammy Davis Jr., who had a show about Lucifer, and Anton LaVey, who started the Church of Satan. And what he did was he said, "Okay, I'm in the military. I'm down to be a Satanist, but I don't like this Judeo-Christian connotation. Okay, can we move it into the Setian? Let's go Egyptian or something. We don't need to be worried about all that stuff." And so that influenced a lot of Hollywood, but also a lot of the military.
That creep. Holy crap.
He was.
I don't know how he groomed his eyebrow. That's
Goodness.
meticulous.
He wrote a book called
Those
Fear.
are horns.
He wrote a book called Fear Itself
Yeah.
because there's this idea we have nothing to fear but fear itself. So he wrote the book on fear itself and psychic warfare and like terrorizing people.
Yeah, he looks like he uses a lot of blush though. Looks like,
and he's still alive. People say he's dead. He's still alive.
Yeah, allegedly he's dead. Allegedly, right? Yeah.
Allegedly.
Oh, wow, look at that guy. I gotta do a stream on just that guy.
So,
Hilarious.
It's really fascinating. Yeah.
My dad doesn't know him. I was like, this guy's down the hallway from you. You gotta know him.
So, but the Oakland military base scandal, he actually went on. What's the guy? Geraldo. He went on the Geraldo Rivera show to talk about the Satanic Panic and Crisis, and what they said, it was alleged that Michael Aquino had been involved with the ritualistic molestation of tons of daycare kids that were being watched for the army or something on the base in Oakland, and that they had venereal diseases and things like that from the situation, and they were unable to prove this. He was innocent until proven guilty and remained so. And he even went on the Geraldo Rivera talk show with Zena Schreck, the daughter of Anton LaVey, and he just continued on his life. But sorry, Eddie, you were going to say something about the base, right? What happened to the base?
Well, the base was demolished, and
right.
Actually, I believe it turned into the current museum, the Disney Family Museum.
Come on, come on!
Sick.
That's funny. That's horrible, but that's
it's like
come on. That's better than a number thing. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Before that happened, Gorbachev was awarded that lot because Gorbachev was going to found his Gorbachev Foundation. Clinton invited him in. Clinton's one who demolished everything, right? So Gorbachev was supposed to open his office. I believe he did, but subsequently he left, and then they demolished it and then rebuilt it into the Disney Family Museum. And my dad was being chased around because they demolished his job, so he had ran to Oakland Army Base too. So, but I have no idea what.
Wait, Eddie, your dad said he didn't know the eyebrow guy?
No, he said no.
Okay, well, he was just protecting you.
Yeah, right. I think we can all wink one eye.
That's one thing I would lie to my kid about. Like, do you know that? No.
Right.
I don't have.
I had a buddy whose dad during September 11th in 2001. His dad was like C-14 or whatever. I think it's cleared for the weird. And so about 3 days before September 11th, he went into his room for 10 days. And then like 3 days into it, they're like, "Dad, there's something going on out." He's like, "I'm not feeling well." And then for a week, he stayed in bed. And then they're like, "How do you feel?" And he's like, when he finally got out, he's like, I don't feel like going to work. And like, so I don't know. There's always been that kind of wonder, like, were there some people?
There's
sounds like Donnie Darko.
There's got to be tipped off. I mean, obviously, Larry Sheckelstein, who runs off with $70 million, ensuring that both towers, 6 months before for specific kinds of terrorist attack for each bill. I mean, obviously,
Larry Silverstein, right?
This doesn't mean that he funded it. This is how this stuff works. Like, people think conspiracy theories is like they're all in on it. No, that it's not required. You tip some people off on some probability of something happening. You elbow them and go, "Hey, you'll thank me later," and then the person, plausible deniability. You don't ask how you knew it. Like, Larry Silverstein doesn't go to the guy who tipped him off and go, "How did you know that?" There's just no questioning. You don't ask it. You don't ask any more questions after, and that's how it actually works. As opposed to like they meet up after and they go, "Wow, we really did that." Right? That's not how this stuff works.
But that 1968 Israeli shekel is weird, right? I mean, it's kind of like a strange, Well, by the way, you should please don't sue me for the time that I ripped off your meme and made it into
fine.
like.
No, that's great.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't own the format. I mean, people know they even know by the sloppy, thick lines. So, that's a Jim Bob, like,
Yeah, no, yeah. You're like it's like a Picasso or something. Yeah,
in other words, it looks like I tape crayons to my elbows and draw. It's a
little Henry Darger. I know.
Okay.
It's an outsider artist. It's like someone who like learned how to do it like based on looking at it after it was done. Mm-hmm. It's a brilliant way of doing things. I love your art. Yeah.
It's deliberate because I come from pretentious art, not an art world in any sense.
You can tell.
But yeah, exactly. But I actually was like, in LA and being around artists all the time, there's so much like there's so much like, what is it? What's the word? Significance to like your form and stuff. And I was like, the moment I realized I could make a meme and have it penetrate the entire like sort of
crude is refined.
Yeah, that crude. As long as the writing is on point, you realize that the technical skill, it's good to have for a certain product or whatever you're doing. But realizing that was unnecessary, I actually turned on the gas at that point, because I was like, oh shit, that means like when I'm now fighting all my sort of like, beforehand, but my left-leaning friends or community people who kind of turned on me for making fun of Obama, I was like, oh, I'm gonna really turn it up a notch and just keep this very crude style going and have it show up everywhere, right? I wanted it to show up everywhere on everyone's feed, and there's probably people still from Los Angeles who kind of broke up with me, who have to see my work on every some page somewhere. And
yeah, like, right. No, it's like, because I think Andy Warhol, also classically trained, did a lot of New Yorker, right? Didn't do New Yorker comics or something like that.
Yeah, reduced style. Yeah,
there's a reductionary is like a brilliant way to actually, focus the point. Yeah, it's a 4-track recording. It's lo-fi.
Exactly.
This is still going on though. Wait, go ahead, Eddie. Sorry.
Just since you talk about the artwork, I came from art school myself. I'm a commercial, animation, that's where I entered and become a storyboard artist.
He worked on Johnny Quest, the Real Adventures of Johnny Quest, and you've seen
Shill.
Yeah,
a whole bunch of stuff. Sure, exactly.
Turner veterans. What are you gonna do?
But what I really admired is the fine arts department in CalArts, where these people, like, they're hanging these dead rats in the jar in formaldehyde.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And how is that your master thesis? I mean, what the heck? And but I want to know because then you see these people become so successful in the galleries and with the curator just like blabbing about millions of dollars in the last picture.
It's the East Coast. It's a New English money connection for laundering. That's the thing.
Yeah. Like, you want to be successful? Okay, you just want to be successful, right? Yes, I'll do anything. Great, we're gonna set up a show. It's gonna be great. Keep quiet. Just get the money. Just be successful, right?
Yeah, $10 popcorn. Great way to launder.
So there's still Eddie. There's still a chance for you.
Yeah, I'm giving up, man. I'm a pencil pusher. To
I don't know. We might make it. I mean, especially we make a movie about these topics. So, I mean, the dolphin who loved the NASA-funded project that went wrong. Here's where it gets weird. We talked about the hand job. Boring. Here's where it gets weird. They actually were getting this dolphin. Imagine this is better than a banana for a monkey, right? So the dolphin actually did learn the alphabet. It could say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all of this stuff pretty well. There's a couple that weren't perfect, but pretty amazing.
So
come on.
Like the F, I don't think they could do the
F.
F.
Yeah, it might have come out a bit like a Hebrew letter, with a. But so the Caribbean, St. Thomas Island, you can see all the connections I've seen. Anyway, Dr. John C. Lilly, who reverse engineered acid for the government and tried to make airborne psychedelic toxins for the military, and was giving DMT and PCP to this dolphin, eventually went to this island retreat with a bunch of guys who were from NASA and said, hey, yeah, we're talking to a dolphin. We've actually figured out how to get the dolphin to talk back to us, which is a lot more than was really going on, by the way,
Talking,
Yeah. He's like, no, I mean, like, I was beautiful, man. Because, like, he's, like, on PCP with the dolphin.
Right,
that's going to be, he's holding the dolphin's head. And the dolphin's, like, this terrified thing. Like, dude, please, what the heck's happening to me? And why are you touching me? Yeah.
It's funny. It kind of reminds me of the opening of 2010. Remember how the doctor, what was his name? But, he was at home. And there are dolphins in his living room.
Right, yeah. It was just like, nobody would be allowed to do that. That's horrible. Yeah, like, what did the dolphin do?
He's got dolphins.
Frankly, dolphins do commit crimes, so it's plausible, but it's messed up. And, you have to imagine, like, what the dolphin had to do to be, like, just, like, that's, like, a Bane kind of thing. Like, this horrible. All right, so the NASA people heard this and said, wow, let's change the Drake equation. If it's true that there are other than humans speaking on Earth, that's already double. It's going to completely change the Drake equation, which is saying how, based on what we know about Earth, what the likelihood of other worlds having languages are, right? Disregarding flat Earth, this idea, they jumped on this idea, and so they created SETI. but they didn't call it that. They called it they called the order the Order of the Dolphin, and they all had this little silver dolphin pin. And then they're like, that's weird. So then they decided to call it SETI. But yeah. So all along the way, I feel like
this stuff is so, like, I don't know if you researched before you worked for NASA, like someone like, Jack Parsons and
right, yeah,
because everyone goes to like the Nazi paperclip stuff, but if you go further back, you understand that like Jack Parsons, who's similar to the eyebrow guy, by the way,
really, you don't like him? You think he's kind of evil? I don't know.
Oh, Jack Parsons,
just because a little bit of all right. So granted, like he's still
I mean,
the pentagram. He's the first artist to get what do you call the death clause, because that pentagram they still use it for the air intake fuselage for all of Lockheed's planes.
Really?
It's in the design for Lockheed's logo. But yeah, to plug it in, it's better than a USB. It's a freaking star. It's like gem holograms.
Right.
That's crazy.
But he was running around with like Robert Heinlein, who at the time was like a massive sci-fi at least in that genre. Very popular, and so there's always this bond, this parallel between modern the view of cosmology, NASA, and all that with sci-fi, that it's almost inseparable in the way it's relayed to human beings. At least I don't know if your experience. I would love to interrogate you about NASA and the process of like, well, what was required to work for them, and then how compartmentalized is it actually, and so forth.
It's super compartmentalized, and how it started was so all my life. So first of all, my grandfather was a 32nd degree Freemason and worked at Lockheed. So I'm pretty sure that helps. I don't know, but they're like, okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how much you need that at every level, but clearly,
right. But then that's decently useful, probably. And so then also third grade, go to NASA field trip, go to Lockheed field trip, do the engineering science classes and science experiments. There's a Janus project.
Did you meet Don Pettit? Did you sit on Don Pettit's lap and he tell you about the zodiacal lights?
I had this like cool rapper jacket that was like this big Eskimo jacket, and they took us into this giant air hangar, and they're like, go into this room. It's like a meat locker, like, and they're like, this is what it would be like to be in the Antarctica McMurdo base, and I'm like, okay, and I'm in my jacket. So there's like girls there that are freezing in their like noodle straps, and I'm like, I'm probably made for this. And so the whole time is what it's very
they were like it's like grooming, not to make it gross, but it is like a form of like, okay,
they're
we gotta start.
There's nothing in this hand, and then they're looking for, while they're doing that, they're looking for who's looking at the left hand, what's in the left hand.
So did you find anything weird as you progressed and started to, you were like, oh, they kind of like want me to work here,
so the weirdest way the way it started was, so this is just field trips. I was like 16, 17 years old. I'm video projecting all the time for these raves and festivals and for these musicians who were working for Pixar Santa Cruz, right? So there's these people that are like 40 and 50 that on the side have their instruments and bands, and they do these things. They want a projector kid. So that got me through into NASA, because NASA had a thing called Yuri's Night, and it was a festival for the first day, the anniversary of Yuri going to space, the first man in space.
Not Bezmenov.
No, yeah. Contentiously.
Did he get killed?
Yeah.
Okay, so then you're doing, it's through culture and cool things, right? It's always like peripheral cultural technology that's really cool. Now it's virtual reality. I mean, that now that the equivalent now is virtual worlds and this augmented reality that people are really into. And, oh, you would work great here. It's a crossover between reality and space, and don't worry, it's all part of a program that's bigger, and you're a part of something huge. And here's your lanyard. Did you get wooed over with like lanyards and status? And I work for NASA. I have a NASA email. I have a NASA email.
Yeah, no. So they first off, they give you a visitor pass until eventually you get to a certain point, but you can use a visitor pass for years. So I used a visitor pass, like a new visitor pass you get every time, and so they can call it makes you feel like an alien in X-Files that it says visitor on it all the time. So that I think means you can't go into certain places, right? No. But there's all kinds of weird stuff you still can do. So there's like a McDonald's there, and I walked into the McDonald's, and that's where the moon footage was, and I got to work on that project, which was crazy. But so I got into nanotechnology, and so they had me just like looking at, with an atomic force microscope, different materials, and so I was constantly looking at and trying to make graphene different ways and things like that. So the thing that really bogged me down was that they wanted us to be interested in, this is also through school, in the DARPA grants because they're like, hey, you can make like you can make a graphene supercapacitor as a lithium battery alternative. We'll give you $5 million. You know what I mean, for your company. Which, you know how that works. Then they own your company and stuff like that.
Yeah, they guide it. And, when Elon Musk was like, I'm going to do what you guys did. And they're like, no, you're actually not. We can't get into that. But we will fund and then guide and sort of co-opt your position and guide you like you can pretend to do a lot of this stuff under our supervision. So there's a lot of that happening where someone has an idea. And this isn't peculiar to NASA, obviously. If you work for like Lockheed Martin, you have a concept. They just own the concept because they own by contract. They own.
My grandfather invented the ceramic casing for the Columbia shuttle, so the whole white idea. That otherwise, it'd just be silver, rusty submarines in space. But so they can re-enter, and there's all these problems that we've heard about.
Did he design the one for the Challenger too?
Yeah, well, technically, yeah. But
one piece.
Yeah, you missed that one out.
Right, but so like he didn't do the installation, NASA did the installation, and so a lot of stuff does always fall back on how NASA does things, unfortunately.
I like to ask a bigger question: is what exactly are they doing and not doing? Obviously, I'm a massive skeptic, denier of almost everything NASA says they do.
Of course, never a straight answer. NASA needs to deceive.
I think they actually work more legitimately locally in the air. As opposed to space out there. I think that it makes more sense. Obviously, that it does make sense as a laundering system. I can't know.
Whenever you hear something like mission removed or something like that, look at this: Janus mission removed from 2023 Psyche launch manifest.
Right.
Like, what is it? Like, what does this article mean? Right. What does this mean to you? Right.
It's written like a magic script here. This
is
Jack Carson stuff.
But so this is the most important, in my opinion. Like this was always the most important thing that anyone I ever knew was working on at NASA was on the Janus project. And if you know, the symbol of Janus is the two heads.
Yeah.
And so so you've got his side and her side of the story, right? But also you have the way that it's taught to us as children in 7th grade when we did the Janus project. They were saying, NASA has to study space, but you also have to study the Earth. It's the twin sides of the issue. So that's why the Janus project. And so McMurdo base and things going on in Antarctica and submarine mining and the work that the NASA can do in the sea, I think is really huge. So submarine, volcano.
That's why I think the sky stuff is more like an entertainment distraction. Keep people focused on something, wacky. They even accept, I don't know what your thoughts on this, but that recent thing where it's like, we hit a meteor, like the footage of that, it's like we're almost at the point where people don't give a shit if it's CGI or not. They're
right.
just like the narrative.
So how did
that... how did you escape that? Did you wake up to something? Was something right? Or
the moon tapes. So, and I'll send you the episode of it because I did a talk on it one time. Mm-hmm. But basically, okay. McDonald's had the tapes, these big yellow boxes with the tapes, and there was this person there that was helping do all of in a sarong that was helping do watching over the equipment. And so we got into how we could fix it. We needed certain kinds of machines to watch it, and then the team got bigger and bigger and bigger of people because we had told NASA about this and we're going to be able to do this. And there was a cool girl there, and they were trying to do there's so many tapes, we're gonna have to. And then all of a sudden they moved the tapes and they said, oh well, we can't find and. We're all distance further from the project as this is happening. They're like, oh, we can't find. Oh, it looks like the tapes have been erased and somebody had recorded over them. That happened in front of me. And so then they're like, but it's okay because we found another copy of the Book of Mormon, which is the way I like to put it. They found another set of the tapes in a storage lot where parking lot unit, a storage house.
Didn't they have this story before you were even born that they taped over shit, or is that more of a recent narrative?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It was like 20.
Wow, you were there for the most recent, explanation of why a bunch of very creative people were about to fully organize and examine some of this stuff.
And so there's been a number of circumstances like that were weird. Also, I had a buddy who was at McMurdo Base who died, and his family they won't tell him how or what happened. And so I just
how did he die?
I don't know if I should be involved with these people.
But these are non-disclosure things where they either do it beforehand or they do it immediately after. Where if something happens, they're basically the first to talk to anybody, and they go, it's going to be the best interest. You're dealing with high-level stuff here. It's very dangerous. It could be maybe like very veiled, not threats, but like the importance of it is all sold, and then you're doing the right thing. Actually, it's less likely you're in danger. More like this is a matter of national security, and you have a huge responsibility. I know it's terrible. I just want to point out that from my side of things, a lot of times it's like, oh, this is like always coercion. The way they do this stuff and maybe like not even just NASA, but like any other, like the Pentagon, how they would use a threat to keep people in line and not talking. But sometimes it's not a threat necessarily. It could be used in another way, like you're doing a patriotic duty to hold a secret, and that gives people pride. I have a cousin who works in Mount Cheyenne in Colorado, and he's always bragging about how much he knows and clearances and all this stuff. He's happy to brag about it, and that's from a position of not like from his perspective, it's not like this like evil hidden secret. It's more like, I'm so special, I've got the special lanyard, right? Which is, it's funny that you mentioned that's obviously a way to farm
I hated that
in.
so much. So I also work for CNN, and so at one point they made me go to and so yeah, like MK Ultra, CIA, whatever. But like, so they made me wear a jacket to go to a party, and I had to wear a Jeremy Scott jacket. So I had a Coachella party, drive like an hour and a half to go get this stupid jacket, which is amazing jacket. It's like covered in like totem pole stuff, to be fair. But then to go back, and I was like, this is the most ridiculous thing. I mean, maybe it was just the traffic or something, but that was when I was like, I can't do any of this stuff anymore. I like just left the country. So I worked in tech and software, and so working in journalism after CNN, I decided to like do podcasts and stuff like that.
So you're not considered to NASA as like some sort of like exposure risk, right? Like telling things or
I think I've said it.
Yeah.
The thing is, everything. So what's weird is when I started doing YouTube videos, NASA started posting out all the stuff that I had said. Like, I'm pretty sure this is all common knowledge, right? And then all of a sudden it'd be like, NASA's like, oh, the moon's in our atmosphere.
Right. Change the atmosphere, right?
Yeah, and that all I was like, I thought we all agreed on this already, and I didn't realize that wasn't like the normal narrative that everyone was taught in school yet. Mm-hmm. It was like, just so you know, 2 and 2 isn't 5, it's 4.
Right.
And that I didn't understand that was what was going on. So I think that we're almost okay now in the sense that information's out there, but nobody cares. It's like, if you've seen the X-Files recently with Dr. They, like, who's they? And they's changing the story and the history and the manipulation and everything all the time. It's like, it doesn't matter what's out there. Nobody's going to read it. There's better.
So I mean, this is so great and so relevant to what I'm going through is in my phases of like truth or exposing this, showing all this stuff.
Your war with Shepard Fairey. Go on.
Yeah, exactly. Is that Shepard Fairey? That's a whole other story. That when you realize that it doesn't matter, that information itself doesn't actually, like this concept of like I gotta wake people up. Like we've all gone through this, right? Like
that was
wake people up, and then you're like,
if I tell them the truth, then it's gonna change them.
Right.
It was a logical belief. That's what, and then Shepard Fairey disproved that. He's like, actually, because I used to think if you put truth in front of them or obey in front of them, they're gonna put truth. They're gonna pick truth, right? No, if you make obey look cooler, they're gonna go with obey.
Right. That's like that. It sounds like a black pill, but it's not from my perspective. It's more like, how relieved am I to not go to a barbecue and have to force someone to read a bunch of folders on, did you read the folders yet? Did you see what I sent you? I sent you a video. I sent you a 5-hour video. People just end up not caring, and I know that pisses people off because they're like, oh, you're just gonna sit there. Like I got yelled at by that gematria guy, like, oh, you're just gonna sit there and live your life. I'm like, yeah I am actually. So I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna teach my kids how to play music. That's been great. My daughter just beat someone at chess who's like 3 years older in the chess. Like all of these like things that actually are meaningful to me are so much more important now than the folder, the folder swap, which now I've kind of made the meme, at least in my following. The folder thing is now a meme, right? Where it's like, oh, someone jumps on my stream and just gets into it. I play this mystery music, which is really hilarious. Well, they're giving us the folder, right? And we're kind of just over it. Is it all still interesting? Of course. It's just that the urgency is it's like a false urgency. Like you're gonna what's gonna happen? Like,
yeah, it's only good.
Hillary's
if
gonna
like,
be in jail. Like what? Tom Hanks is gonna get arrested.
Right. That part is false.
Yeah.
It's funny that I feel like in retrospect, like when I moved to Mexico in 2006, and I was at that time I was starting to blog on MySpace, and I had like 5,000 followers because I had a huge like conspiracy, everybody were like discussion happening there. But I moved to Mexico, so I feel like, oh, I have nobody's gonna like kill me for saying this. So I was in my own little paranoid in the beautiful beach town in Cancun and in Playa del Carmen, where all these American glitzy tourists, and I'm like struggling to stay alive down there. And then I'm just like, what am I doing here? There's like Bush stepped down and Obama came on, and like nothing ever changed. I was such a 9/11 truther for a couple of years.
Yeah, you thought the justice was going to be served, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I have everything down to science. I mean, the whole Larry Silverstein, the AIG insurance, I can blab about
all of it, right?
But I'm like, wait a second, nobody cares. The war moved on. Everybody's happy again.
They're not even glitching your audio anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that you see
and
that
I had to get out.
Yeah,
even Mexico was so unlivable. I had to get out of that country. The cartels were trying to kill me.
Yeah. For dropping the folders at the local taqueria, like you're just like, about 9/11. Like I do a skit where I'm at, my former self is at a barbecue and I haven't seen a guy in like 10 years that I'm friends with, and he's like, oh, Jimbo, what's going on? How's it going? And you're like, how do you think it's going? Did you know about 201? Did you know about Event 201? Oh, no, I'm actually teaching my kids, softball. It's great. Do you have kids? Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It's like, do you really think you're going to play a game of softball and you're going to get out of this? And it's like this constant, pushing people into a corner where they're like, okay, I'll read the folder. It's just, it doesn't help people. Unfortunately, that's the reality, is that the info rarely changes someone. I actually think it's more likely to move someone with a single note from an opera than a folder about 9/11.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the thing is, it's like we put out so many videos about Tartaria talking about lost history and everything like that. And it's interesting, the people that did care, including, it's like weird to get responses back and people commenting on it, like Alexander Dugin, like, the Russian advisor of intelligence, and also David Rothschild and Alex Soros, and people are like, okay, so there's something that we should be looking into. And then there's so many people on YouTube, and there's a lot of really great video channels, right? Like I love a lot of them. But yeah, like you said, it gets to a point where the dire urgency or just the convolution of content, it takes away from what it blurs out any of the essentiality of what's really important there. This idea that there's something that's been stolen from the people, and that's relevant all of a sudden, that there's a reset coming where all of it's going to be the property of the state. Somehow these things are connected, and everything else is the thing that's just there to, that's the butt plugs in the chess match. You know what I'm talking about with the Newman? You saw that, right?
No.
Oh, okay. That's a horrible metaphor to bring up.
Is that Seinfeld?
No, real life chess butt plug. Just so you don't think I'm crazy. Chess scandal involving butt plugs.
Oh yeah. I heard of it. I have no idea what that means. He's sitting
really?
There, he's
would you look at that headline?
Yeah, Hans Niemann.
Chess match with the butt plug.
So how do we know this isn't an AI headline that's just generating?
Oh no, it's important. So there's so many things. Why did you make me segue to this? Plugio. Oh, I did it wrong. Hold on. Buttplug.io. That's how you do it. Is the open source standard software project for controlling intimate hardware.
Okay, like smart stuff.
Right, that buzzes. So it tells you what chess moves to do. Right. This,
Oh.
if you got a kid playing chess, you got to be careful now. Apparently,
Yeah,
but what
cheat
Buzz
codes.
left.
these are the So basically,
jump out to sea a few times.
Hans Niemann, Magnus quit the game, and then they said, okay, who cares? It's chess. And then they're like, well, what if it's because of how would he cheat? Maybe he had to have a butt plug. And because of that, it became chess. This is being talked about in China. This is one of the most famous stories in the world involving chess, that we've ever heard, right? The last one is Bobby Fischer being anti-Semitic. So now all of a sudden there's this guy scanning him. He's about to scan, but watch this part. This is the funniest part. Hold on.
That guy's
Turn
walking
around.
funny.
He
He's
looks
walking
just
funny.
like the guy who the FX
He's XT. Yeah, he's different. He's in a different
He
system.
looks
But
just
this
like
is-
the crypto guy, right?
They're
this
like,
is-
sorry, sir.
He does. He has that same kind of vibe.
crazy-
Yeah.
Sorry, sir.
Genius
You
haircut.
are walking a little funny.
Wait for it.
Not
He's
to
going to turn him around.
Not to
Turn him around.
discriminate.
Do it. Turn around. Do it.
I'm sorry,
Scan his butt.
sir. I'm sorry,
Almost with
sir.
Your knees are buckling.
Yeah. So the thing is, I only use that as an example because it's so
Oh my God,
ridiculous
that's
that it
worse
was
than
famous.
PSA.
But the issue was the cheating of chess, right? So it's the same idea. Like, Mudflood, Tartaria, Chicago used to be Atlantis, is just maybe convoluting the point of society has been stolen from us and it's hyper relevant right now, right? But
So-
it makes it more interesting to people.
So what extent? I mean, because you've covered so much of it.
I want to.
Sorry, Eddie, what?
You want to go back to your dad not knowing the guy?
Oh
again?
no, sorry. I'm having a lag. Okay. Oh no. No, I want to connect with that because I made another post about Graham Hancock, my friend, who
Right.
we did ayahuasca together in Brazil, and it has something to do with what Andrea just said. It's just that
He's doing pretty well for
I
himself
followed
now.
so many of his books. I collected his books for years. Yeah, now he has a Netflix special. Now everybody knows him.
Yeah.
So I was with him in 2000 before I moved to Mexico. So we had this talk about, I was like, why are you writing this book called Supernatural about you going around the world doing all these crazy drugs instead of like talking about the Sphinx and how old it really is, and then he just said, Eddie, I have hit a dead end.
Yeah.
The book before Supernatural was Underworld, and he was doing so many dives in Sri Lanka, found the land bridge. He dived into Japan and Yonaguni. There's another.
You got to keep it
crazy
sexy.
architecture, 300 feet underneath the water. Yeah. So, but he just like there's no that everything's erased. That's why the show is called Ancient Apocalypse, because it's a cyclical thing. The you cannot research anymore. It's been erased. So he's trying to make contact with his dead father, who he absolutely regret missing because he was traveling around the world. And then he went to Africa to do ibogaine to talk to his dad, and then he talked about seeing great aliens, And so I saw aliens myself. So we have that conversation. So we're just like, there's nowhere else to go. All that like you say Tartaria and all these ancient history we've been lied to about, it's been erased.
How much?
And you just try to like trace back to your roots.
Yeah, sorry. What are you gonna
I'm sorry.
go ahead?
Not being.
There's a lag, I think.
Oh, yeah,
confusing.
there's choppiness.
No.
But yeah, so what were you gonna ask? I'm sorry, Jim.
Andreas, I was gonna, because you've covered some of this with Eddie and probably other people, is did you find out to some extent that anything within even a narrative like this ends up being infused with false information, whether it's just from ordinary people running with narratives, or do you think that things like this also get sort of psyoped to dilute them purposefully, where they infuse it or they try to generate because what I heard last is that people who were invested in this stuff suddenly realized there was an aspect that was totally messed with, and what I heard is that it was messed with to sort of get people on the mindset of revisionist history, so they couldn't actually trust anything. And this gets into actually this kind of stuff where you're questioning the fundamentals of your memory and the past, which that in itself you could probably, we couldn't point to where exactly, but if that was a psyop that was possible, I think that would be a massive control apparatus.
I absolutely I absolutely believe that they, with these book drives at school are taking back Berenstain Bears and replacing them with Berenstain Bears. But even if that wasn't the case, CERN and the idea that we have a convergence of realities could be happening, I think that's way more realistic than people want to give credence to. The the Fruit of the Loom logo is interesting to me, but that's all silly. I'm all right with that. The thing is, getting beyond that. Oh, okay, one more thing though that's fun about the Berenstain Bears. The son of the Berenstain writer says it's always been Berenstain. The reason is because long ago there was a battle between the Bohemians and the Tartars, and the Bohemians lost the battle. And if they had won, it would have been Stein. But because our name, was in a Tartar zone, it became Stan, which became Stain. So I always thought that was interesting. If you look for the CIA on Tartaria, you'll find that in 1968 they started trying to use it just to break up the Cossacks in the Chechenian region of the Soviet Union. They're like, hey, if we can get these people to be nationalists.
As a concept, or as something that was fundamentally there that then they could just hijack use it as a tool. So it's like a tool. It ends up being a tool, right?
Yeah. So this is of course the thing. You can look at Taurus Bulba, and Taurus Bulba is the tale of the Cossacks who Poland conquered, and then they waited 27 years, and he had to kill his own son to take back the Cossack lands of Tartaria. And these are the 1830s, and then you can look up Tartaricum Bellicum, which is the 1500s. Let me see if I can I find it. Tartarium.
How does this all connect with the I don't want to go anti-Semitic or anything, but they say the crypto Jews, right? The crypto Jews was what they labeled to be.
So I mean,
Jews from Kazakhstan, right? Kazakhstan.
You really do want to get yourself Kanye, don't you? Well, so there's a couple of things there, which is interesting. For one thing, Peter Fleming, who's Ian Fleming's brother, right? So James Bond and stuff. He wrote News from Tartary and talked all about how Beijing used to be called Tartar City, and all across East Asia, things were connected to Spain. And you can look at the Cordoba Caliphate.
Does that mean Tartar is more of like a cultural reference than a geographic location? Correct.
Khazar, and that's going to become really clear in a second if I can just get the picture up of the caliphate. Basically, when you look at the Arab, up until the Catholics took over. Look at where? Oh, Astana. Yeah, we'll look at Astana in a second.
And they said.
I'll go to Astana in a second, but really just quickly, if you look at the Rus territories and you consider how the water was spread, and then this map is only using today's map when we know that a lot of these places actually had water that broke them and made it easier to get across here. For instance, Turkey to the Black Sea was very convenient to get from Egypt and from
climate change.
Right. And very rapid climate change. So another important point I like to bring up is the Aral Sea, which this was the Aral Sea, but in 1989, and this is now because we very quickly dried up the lake, which is what happened across the United States for Mulholland in California. There are so many examples where we created the Sahara, and we now know that the Sahara was very green and lush, and Congo went to Mega Chad Lake. You know about Mega Chad? This is what the Chad used to look like. Africa used to be these giant lakes. Yeah, these huge lakes across, and this whole area had the Tamarisset rivers, and it's all connected, and it was like beautiful. Anyway, you got to 1492. You finally get the end of the Arabic rule over Spain, which also controlled Holland. And so you have to imagine, like, how much control did they have? Well, they controlled everything from Western Europe all the way east. And we even find, and this is their thing, is a star fort. You can find out, well, where are they? Well, they're the ones who built the star forts, right? The Arabs and the geometric patterns into the Italian period. Well, you can find them in Hawaii.
That star fort logo, you can go up there. That star fort logo looks just like the Swab logo that we saw earlier. The swastika. Look at it.
Interesting,
right? It's the octagon.
Yeah,
I don't know. It looks.
It's true. But if you start looking, you'll find star forts around the world that are in Peru, for instance. I don't know if I can find the Bastille Fort in Peru, the Lima, all over the world. You'll find these in Argentina. This is what the way these cities used to look. So it's really fascinating. There were clearly these cities. You can look at Strasbourg map. And it'll be, for instance, like, and then Vienna siege.
So people like in this kind of movement, at least what you've experienced, there's like this a virtue aspect that it's like you lied to us about our past, you're stealing history, but there's no way to like claim in a way like an identity to this culture, like from our modern position, like we got to go back to our roots of Tartaria, because even if that was the case, if you just granted it, like it seems like there would still be a disconnect, especially as Americans. We're so infantile in our existence that there's not even an there's Americana, right? But there's not much to claim in our own culture.
That's the brilliance of it. So you think about it, Germany's younger than America is. There was no Germany 250 years ago, right? And the same thing can be said about Spain 400 years ago, or Italy 500 years ago, 400 years ago. These were all parts of other countries, and it's insane. The United States thinks that we are one of the oldest cultures in the world that's been allowed to exist after the last reset, which is very recent, anything with the 19th century. And we have manifest destiny, the idea that nobody was doing, and this is what Morals and Dogma says about the Tartars. It says, well, they weren't doing enough with it, so we had to take it from them after they screwed it up. And so likelihood is, like you said, like Krakatoa, there's a volcanic power plant blows up and then they lose everything. A generation or two go by, and then all of a sudden the former mercenary or the clientele become mercenaries of the Dutch East Indies, and this is the connections to the states that emerge that we know today now. But at the time you have really Scythians and you have Tartarians, which are trading with each other in a triangular.
Yeah, you know what's funny is like imagine we are now the future Tartaria, that the future generation is arguing and demanding the truth of the matter to uncover what ends up just being a collection of like TikTok videos, right, from the past, and they're like, this was our civilization. We need to,
Well, there's a couple alluring things. One is the idea that free energy is emerging, and that free energy was a constant across Tartaria. That it was something that was the ambient flow of energy was accepted and used. That's nice. But the other thing is the land versus sea powers. When I talked with Alexander Dugin, his thoughts were that there's this naval power that's emerged from the trading of this triangular trade system that existed that combated the hemispheric seasons. You have an endless summer of trade, but then that requires these cities that are naval cities, right? Which is, if you think about it, Hong Kong is the example. It was a British city on a Chinese port because it's a naval port for trade. And these existed. And then you had people that were bringing the resources to trade with each other at the ports. So there was
this function. It creates functional autonomy. Right? But this is what's interesting about modern technology. Suddenly, we think in the short term, like convenience wise, it's great. Suddenly, we have airplanes that just fly into these places, but it actually disrupts this kind of system itself, like free trade itself from a libertarian perspective of like, no, why not? Like boats and planes from everywhere, all cross-pollinating, but it actually kind of disrupts the cohesion that you're actually showing on this map. That was actually a function of just what you had. It was actually the limitation that gave way to that system that you just said. And it's like unfortunate that modern technology gives us all these perks, but it actually disrupts things like that are kind of necessitated by geography and culture in close proximity, as opposed to like, I'm going to move now. I decided I'm going to just move, right? I'm going to follow my job and travel somewhere else. You just multiply that concept of just being able to move all the time as well. I think there's a lot more variables when we look at this stuff. I just find it fascinating that there's so many other technological variables that play into what you're showing and how different things are now.
Absolutely. I mean, thinking about the scarcity economy and the service economy concepts, like Amazon's moving into the idea of less entropy for distribution. And that is the biggest, if you can get a drone to bring a thing to a person and you can cut down the amount of time it takes.
Here is your monthly. I always think that they're going to bring back Stephen Hawking to be the hologram that delivers your Amazon apples, right? Here are your apples.
Uncancel Schwarzenegger. I want him to be my robot.
Yeah, exactly. Or you're like, your dead grandmother, she's like, hi, honey. And it's like, you're freaking me out.
Oh, man, that's going to happen, too.
It is.
I kept thinking, since you just brought up Hong Kong earlier, like China is a big problem. For one, is that it's such a vast slave labor market that that's why the Opium War started, because England trying to trade with China, but China doesn't want anything that England has. We got everything that you want. We got tea, we got all that sweet stuff, and then we got all the ceramics, China, and everything. And then the British like, what the fuck? I'm gonna. This is
buy our drugs. Dang it! Yeah.
This is not even close to bartering here. What the hell? It's a huge deficit. So I mean, it's happening again. It's a cyclical thing.
That's the thing about it. That seems so. That's why Tartaria seems so relevant, because historically, it's a great example of saying, "Hey, they weren't doing anything with it. It's this. We're familiar with it even from the left. They talk about Eurocentricity, right? Like, oh well, they didn't have a flag. This is a real thing. Not necessarily Eurocentricity, but maybe Babel centricity. I don't know what we're going to call this, because this is a replacement of the system, and the fundamental differences are." Anthropological views that were taught in school are that the world started from scarcity and war. People fought against each other. They started working as allies to fight against each other. Those are the ones who won, and we're here. Whereas this is the opposite model, saying that there were resources, they were sharing resources, they were distributing, and there was a forum of exchange that was created, and that this somehow was disrupted, right? And that is very similar to Grant Hancock's ancient apocalypse concept, but it's a lot more recent,
Yeah, it's interesting that shift is cooperative versus like this like victimology that's been now I think reaching its end, by the way. All the shield and protection and minority protection and all these narratives that are falling apart now. People are going back to like, well,
equal representation.
Yeah, all this stuff. Yeah, we're like when you were saying about centric, like Eurocentric or whatever. It's like they're trying to make it like diverse centric, which is actually sort of like an oxymoron because there's no identity itself, which I find another aspect of like when we look at nations and identities, like there's something worth looking at. Now, I don't have that sense in America. I have like an American sense of like identity, but I'm Italian and Irish. I don't have like an Italian. I don't have a connection to that's worth like defending or, being offended by or whatever. Whereas other countries who have, you were saying that Germany even being younger, technically, still has somehow a more homogenous view of their identity, right? What language, culture, customs.
I'd like to think so, but I don't know.
But not anymore. Like, not anymore now.
I think so. It's hard to say. I think they do.
Maybe what's left?
I think
Japan.
So. Canada is the one that sticks out to me because Canada didn't have an identity and they created one. And if you watch, like I do a Thursday show, MK Canada, and it seems like every week I was going to just do it once, and then every week there's some weird stuff like Harley Pasternak, which we didn't even talk about, but we're 2 hours deep. But do you know about Harley Pasternak?
What? No. What's their identity though?
Dude, so okay, just for how can I do this properly? So if we go to the Twitter, this is the right before he walked off the show, he says, "We found out that my trainer was an MK Ultra Canadian intelligence officer," and then they cut him off, right? So
right,
and he confirmed. Luke confirmed. Yes, he is a part of the military complex.
Yeah, in the process. Yeah, but okay, so good job. Yeah, but it's okay. Harley Pasternak, he is the Canadian military CIA trainer who you call him Dr. Pasternak. He's not a doctor. He's just a guy who, I don't know if you can see pictures of his clients, but here's some of his clients, right? They're like Eva Mendes, Megan Fox. Does it show his client list or did they get rid of it on his website? I'll go to the next page. See, everybody you've ever heard of in Hollywood is under his kind of control. And he was sending these weird text messages that Kanye outed that were showing how he's like, I'll take your kids away from you if you don't do what I say because I got that kind of power. And just this idea of like these MK Ultra handlers that were emerging. Anyway, so MK Canada, we were showing this kind of thing, and we realized that, the Canadian government created in the C11, they've created all these ideas to push Canadian content. They've created Canadian television. It's all tax paid. And then they have, if you put a Aboriginal native girl in a wheelchair with autism driving a fuel efficient vehicle to, each one of these things is like $10,000 extra for your budget. So they make their convoluted progressivism.
Gotcha.
And it's all, and they have these, since the 20s or 1890s to the 1920s, they're like, if we don't do this, we're going to become assimilated. And so this is, and that in conjunction with Tavistock, Britain did the same thing. You look at the BBC, you look at the creation of their media, and it's to control media.
That's crazy because that same pattern, obviously, I actually a prediction I thought was a joke. I was saying that like NASA wanting to send like the first black lesbian to the moon, and I just took it to its logical conclusion. I was like, soon they'll just send up, you know, the vegetable people who are just mostly their head and just bodies, they're limbless, and be like the first limbless, you know, veteran or whatever. And lo and behold, the first you know, legless person is announced, you know, to be what is actually space is like 60 miles up. Or
probably saves them like $20,000-$50,000 because the weight
totally.
of the
Yeah. Well, now it's like you might as well just have a person that doesn't have any legs and have robots that kind of sort of like come out when they need to.
Oh, you're talking about the dummies. You're
no,
talking about the dummies, right?
We're talking about like when they put a person in space who's a paraplegic or quadriplegic, so that it's less weight and they can still
or midgets.
Weightless in space.
Midgets, it would be hilarious.
It's like you can't
hire midgets, hire little people way more.
Oh,
I think
totally.
little people deserve jobs.
That'd be so funny. Anyway, I gotta wrap this up.
Yeah, we're at the end of the thing. I wanted to say again, thank you for coming, and this is awesome. Can we go to your web?
Before we go, can you look at? I just want to see if I want to pick his brain too. It's just one AI article about they discovered. Okay, yeah, go. Yeah,
an article written by AI or an article about AI?
Oh no, it's about somebody discovered by converting a name. I forgot which actor.
Did you send? Where'd you send it?
Marlon Brando. Somebody. Yeah. Okay. Let me see if I can find it. Because some woman, she tried to use the prompts. You know, the AI prompts, right? The artwork. The people are all doing that now, using AI to create artwork through prompts. And she put Marlon Brando, and then put it backwards. Then she spelled it backwards, and all of a sudden this crazy.
Oh goodness!
Yeah.
That
one.
I've seen some of these. That's producing like you know, like I think the AI was asked to produce itself, and it was just a demon. It was like do a self portrait, and this AI was just like horns, total demonic shit.
Yeah, but it's always this woman named Loeb. She asked her, "What are you, Loeb?" She passed not just to artwork, but also passed to audio. And then she kept saying, identify herself as Loeb, no matter what she does with it. You know, as long as there's that backwards. Well, you can read the article, but it's crazy. It's Marlon Brando backwards, and it's on and on. She does all different variations. Always come back to this woman with a bunch of dead babies.
What do you think? Do you believe that demons are coming through the tech?
That's what
I think. Yeah, I think that it's possible that bots and trolls is a reflection of the desires and activities of ordinary people who are actually inputting most of the inputs here. Like, so it's not like it's deriving from nothing. It's deriving from data. And so I think this stuff is actually a reflection of the mind of the populace. So in a way, if the mind of the populace is under some sort of, in my view, is there's demonic shit going on, which means you're just vacant. You're vacant to be manipulated by the, conforming to the worldliness, pursuits of all these pleasures and such. And that I think what it's drawing from is an accurate representation of the collective mind, not of everybody, of course, but of enough people where it's actually giving an accurate reflection of the spirit of the people at this point, which I think people should take seriously, at least at face value, and kind of re-examine it. But again, don't spend 9 hours on Gematratron, okay?
Okay. Well, what do you think about this woman's name? Her name's Loeb, but if you spell backward, it's pretty much Bow.
Bal, yeah, I saw that, or I thought of Lisa Loeb myself.
Which is actually scarier. If you go to madebyjimbob.com, guys, you can get a bunch of his content, and I would say you should. This is pretty sweet. I mean, honestly, get this book and leave it at a friend's house. You know, like if you have any friends, like 20 people live there, this is put on a coffee table.
Absolutely.
It's super important. And also get the mug, wear the shirt. I love the shirt. Like, I mean, there's a lot of shirts.
Yeah, the shirts are fun. And this all of this stuff, especially the book, these are signed, ready to go for Christmas, holidays, and whatever you got coming up. So
it's freaking harmless and it's provocative,
True.
And subscribe to his YouTube because he's growing on YouTube. He's got a lot of interesting stuff. He's doing lives. I've seen a couple of good Cryptardia live stream, Truth According to Atheists.
Cool.
We need cynicism. We need skeptics in the world. And, obviously this is a skeptic who's open-minded. So that's a good role model for us all.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. What a great conversation. How many different topics? Amazing. Is this how it always is? It's just like It's just like this, like it's like, oh, a dolphin, anal cheating chess, and then obviously we get into the questionable Eddie's questionable father. I mean, you work for NASA.
Come together.
I mean, that's incredible. That's incredible. I can't get a NASA person on my channel. I did a lot of things about NASA.
It's really hard. I can't get anyone that I know to go on my show who worked at NASA. And when I talk to people, like, so I had a friend who was I was talking to him for like a week while he was waiting to go to McMurdo, and because he had in isolation in New Zealand, it's like, dude, just come on. He's like, alone, come on my show. It's like, they won't let me. Like, I can screen it, ask. I was like, dude, here are the questions we'd ask. You could prompt the responses all beforehand, even like I'll play along, whatever. And they're just like, no, because
I did a stream once. I don't know if you know that there's all these like science channels like Smarter Every Day. This dude Smarter Every Day, I don't know his name. He has this huge channel, right? Huge science channel, all this stuff, right? So his dad works for NASA in some sort of like department where he's overseeing measuring. He's literally just measuring stuff. Now, to get the guy, the son, to visit at work day, right? He had to go through so many different crazy stuff, and the dad didn't even know the process was happening. So it wasn't like the dad was like, "Hey, Carl, my son wants to come in. Is that okay?" And you'd think, yeah, you probably need to sign a waiver at least, but beyond that, it should be fine. Well, this process was like 2 weeks long, and these are father and son, and they never talked about what each other does. Like, the dad never told the son in this whole entire career what he did, right?
Yeah.
And
my grandfather got a little mouthy right at the end.
Oh, man, you should have prodded him just with a
but
man.
But I also I knew his rules,
his last word.
But my dad, when he was a kid, he used to be like, hey, how are you doing, Dad? When he got home at like 10 p.m. and he'd be like, I'm exhausted. And he'd be like, what did you do today? Can't tell you. And that was his life. Yeah.
It makes sense with not to go too far into it, but any basic level, even not NASA, like Lockheed Martin, you would sign waivers where you can't. So that makes sense. But what was interesting is the guy eventually got in. He's at his dad's work. And because of the level of intelligence of this science communicator guy, the son, asking questions to the dad that the dad couldn't answer. Like really basic questions like, why is the reflector shield facing the wrong way if the black side you want facing actually out? And he just said, I don't know. You have to ask a different department. And what I did, I examined this through a live stream, step by step. I watched it and started making fun of it, but calling out all these weird moments where the dad was like, "Shut up, son," basically like getting uncomfortable. I'll try to send you not the live stream because it's probably gone from YouTube, but that meetup, and you could take a look and see. You'll probably notice some things and go, "Yeah, that's a little out of the order. That's a little bit strange that." That they don't know the answers to these very basic questions of what they're measuring and why they're measuring it. But nonetheless, they have this job for 20 years, right? Out of the car industry, by the way, that these two guys start working and they're just given this cush job of just measuring things all day, just measuring things, not understanding what they are, why they work, how they work.
That's how it felt, man. They're like, just do this atomic force microscope and tell us what the measurements are. It's like, okay.
Measure,
like, what is this? Yeah.
Very interesting.
Taxpayers' money.
Yeah, totally.
Dude, I don't know if this is your Twitter. Is this your Twitter made by Jim Bob? Is that really you or is it fake?
Is that Twitter?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me. I don't really use it much. I'm more on Instagram. I'm on my 5th account on Instagram, made by Jim Bob. And some other things. It's mostly Instagram and YouTube. And then, what else is there? There's someone runs my Telegram account. Gab, I'm on there. But I'm most active on these, on YouTube and this thing. And I keep having to create new accounts constantly. So follow.
But I'm a vegan. Come on, these are good.
Well, what I'm seeing here is a made by Jim Bob Brazil. That's not it, right?
Oh, that's someone who reforms my stuff for Brazil, which is really cool.
Dude, come on. These are so fun. All right. And then, Eddie, go to Synchronous on Twitter and on the Facebook. It's right here in the link. You can click it here and you can join the Synchronous group and look into synchronicities and follow the data. You know what I mean? There's some crazy stuff that's going on. Creepy Joe.
Open forum. You can everybody can join in the discussion. It's just there's no dictatorship here.
What is this on, Andreas? Where do I
Facebook,
link
Facebook.
people?
This video.
Show. Yeah.
This video's on YouTube, and I'll send you a link to it afterwards.
Okay, cool. All right,
yeah,
guys.
legit.
Cool. Thanks,
a lot,
Eddie.
man.
Thanks, Andreas. Great talk. I'll talk to you guys soon.
That's meeting you, man.
Okay. Cool.
Peace, man.
See you.
Take care, everybody.